What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I have another official 2022 NBA mock draft video to of course be going over with you guys. This time I actually am going to be doing picks 6 from 10. Of course, I recently just did my picks 1 through 5. If you guys would like to go check out that video, of course, before watching this one, I do highly recommend it. Again, I will be linking it in the description down below if you guys would like to, of course, do it. But I guess without further ado, let's just get straight into it with the 6th overall pick, which I do have, of course, the Indiana Pacers selecting. And I really love the player that I've got them taking right now, and I've actually got the Pacers selecting Jaden Ivey at 6 overall. Now, Jaden Ivey, I think, is easily the best point guard in this class. Like, it's a pretty far margin from him and the next best. Again, even though I would say the next best is, of course, Dyson Daniels, Jaden Ivey, I think, just has him covered. I think he is a really talented player, really good defensively at 6'4", can guard the point guard and can guard the shooting guard, and can really switch on to both of them. Again, a couple of comparisons on what he's been kind of talked about in the NBA is when it comes to his defense actually being talked about like similar to a bit of Josh Richardson, you know, in the terms of being able to guard point guard, shooting guard, and small forward efficiently, and potentially even Marcus Smart. A bit of those two players on the defensive end. Then on the offensive end, there's definitely a bit of Ja Morant in him as well. He's just a really good, capable player that I think would work so perfectly on the Indiana Pacers, especially if you partner him up with Tyrese Halliburton. I think that would be a really interesting duo to potentially see in the future. Again, both of those players are above, 6'4" and above. At that guard position, both are really good defenders that can switch from the 1 to the 3. They're all, both of them are pretty capable shooters as well. Again, this season, Jaden Ivey actually shot 36% from 3, which a little bit of a worry I do have is it could, might not carry over to the NBA in his first season, but it really doesn't matter. Again, I just think he and Tyrese Halliburton would be such a good duo. In his second season of college, he was actually averaging around 17.5 points per game on 5 rebounds. Really good defense, and of course about 3 assists per game. Now again, the only worry I think that kind of lies in his game, maybe other than sometimes he can be a bit of an inconsistent 3-point shooter, but again, to me, he'll definitely get better at that when it does come to the NBA. The only other worry I think some people are pointing out is he's not a very efficient playmaker, and that's why I think a couple of teams won't potentially look to draft him, with a really high pick, especially, if it was to come to when he would be like in top 3 contention. Of course, he's kind of fallen out of it because some of those teams that would be in that top, 3 contention would be looking for like a playmaking guard, this and that. But of course, I don't think, in my opinion, that should be taken away from him as a player at all, especially if he goes to the Indiana Pacers, because if you think about it like that, he and Tyrese Halliburton really, I think, would be a perfect young guard duo to have in the NBA. Again, the lack of playmaking that Jaden Ivey does sometimes have can definitely be made up for by Tyrese Halliburton, who has already shown on the Sacramento Kings and Pacers this season. He averaged like 7 assists per game, and he wasn't even the #1 like ball handler on the Sacramento Kings, and he had to share it again with Davion Mitchell as well. So when he's had so many guards to share it with on Sacramento, to average like 6 or 7 assists or whatever it was at that kind of pace, I think is so great for him. And going into next season, where if the Pacers were to draft Jaden Ivey, I just think it would be such a good thing for both of them. Again, I don't think Jaden Ivey would really mind Tyrese Halliburton being the, facilitator / playmaker for the team, especially while he improves. I think, again, Jaden Ivey, I think, would go really well with that. Both are incredibly good defenders, which would be really good for the Pacers because they've been known to have and really like defensive players over the years rather. He's a good scorer, really good athleticism, like a Ja Morant type player. And again, as I said, his defense is kind of like a Marcus Smart hybrid with Josh Richardson as well. So I really like him as a player. I think he makes a whole lot of sense. And yeah, in my opinion, I think the Indiana Pacers should take him with the 6th overall pick. Alright, now with the 7th overall pick, we do of course actually have the Portland Trailblazers, who did unfortunately drop a couple spots, which I didn't, they definitely didn't want to. They were one of the teams that was really hoping they could get like a pick 5 or 4 this year, where they could have maybe taken a Keegan Murray, who I thought would have really fit in so perfectly for their team. But of course, again, if you guys watched my official top 5, you would know I did have Keegan Murray going at pick 4 to the Sacramento Kings. Again, go check that video out if you would like to see why I had them taking him, this and that. But again, when it does come to pick number 7, I do think there is a player right now that is pretty NBA ready, in my opinion. I think he can come in and do a really fantastic job, and that actually happens to be Adrian Griffin Jr., or as most people refer him to as AJ Griffin. Again, I just think he would be such a good player for the, of course, Portland Trailblazers to bring in. Again, the way the Trailblazers, what they're kind of doing right now is, we know that they traded a bunch of players like CJ, and Norman Powell to free up a lot of cap. We know that they've done that. They're going to be going into free agency, really trying to bring in a lot of players. We know it looks like they're bringing back Anthony Simons to a big 4-year deal. Nurkic probably will come back as well, meaning that they're probably looking to get that small forward and power forward, who they think they will probably try and sign a player / trade for maybe a dude like Jeremy Grant. But then there's also the option of drafting another one of those wing dudes, maybe to come off the bench or maybe to even start. And I think AJ Griffin really does fit that type of mold. Again, he's really a really good shot creator. He is a really good 3-point shooter as well. I think the shot creation is the thing that really does get me on AJ Griffin. I just think that is something that's really special that some players really struggle with. And honestly, some players do have trouble with converting it to the NBA, but I think on a team like the Portland Trailblazers, I think he'll actually do really well with something like that. Again, his defense could maybe improve a little bit right now, but there's honestly been comparisons to Jimmy Butler in terms of how much his defense could potentially develop in the NBA. Of course, in college, Jimmy Butler's shown he could be one of the best defenders, and as he got in the NBA, it started off pretty bad, but eventually got better and better. Again, I think AJ Griffin's one of those dudes that could do the similar thing, just gradually improve his defense. He's also got a really nice mid-range shot on him as well. And again, as I said, just a really solid shot creator coming out of college that can guard that shooting guard and small forward position. I think will be greatly wanted by the Portland Trailblazers. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense. I don't know if he would start in his first season, but just to bring a dude off your bench who could maybe average himself above 10 points per game or something in his first season on quality minutes would be a really nice thing. And plus, the capability and potential on the defensive end, I think, is something that would really excite a lot of Portland Trailblazers fans. And again, I just think it would make a whole lot of sense for them to look to draft a dude like AJ Griffin. But yeah, again, it is a really good pick, and I think Trailblazers fans, even though they didn't get Keegan Murray, should be pretty happy with this one. Now, moving over to the 8th pick, we've actually got the New Orleans Pelicans, who are a really weird team to actually kind of look at picking, because a couple months ago, I would have said they desperately needed a point guard, but it seems like they've really kind of changed their mold on how they're actually running things. In fact, they've actually been playing CJ McCollum a lot at that point guard position, predominantly the whole time pretty much he's been at New Orleans. They've been running him at that point guard spot. Again, he's been doing much better defensively there. His playmaking and facilitating has actually improved greatly on the Pelicans. And yeah, he even got them to the playoffs and looked like he was a really good player to have alongside, Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas. And then you've got the guy who's I wouldn't say he's forgotten. I think people still know he's in the NBA, but I don't know what he's doing. I don't know, he shares a very common goal in me, and that's consume as much KFC as we want, and that's Zion Williamson. I don't honestly know what he's doing, but I would imagine the Pelicans' plan would still be to run him as a point forward type of player, similar to what they did a little bit ago. And that's why I actually don't have them taking a point guard, considering I already know CJ McCollum's going to be their starting point guard, it looks like, for the future. And then you've already got Zion being that point forward type of player as well. I think they might just sign a veteran point guard to come off their bench and honestly go with more of a wing with this pick. And I actually think they might go for a guy like Johnny Davis, who I wasn't exactly extremely high on to start off with, but he's kind of come out of nowhere and really done well in kind of, I think, a lot of mock draft things. He played pretty well in his, latter games in college, and I think, yeah, he's really put a lot of people to kind of put a different perspective on him. Again, he's a really crafty player with the ball in his hands, has a really, really good capability of scoring from the mid-range, and potentially, of course, just getting into the lane as well. He's known to be a pretty good shooter. Again, not necessarily a knockdown shooter so far from the three-point line, but I think considering, the Pelicans already got their shot creators figured out in their starting five with CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson, I would think it actually be pretty cool to bring a young shot creator off the bench rather, and I think that Johnny Davis would be a nice guy. Again, they've got Herbert Jones in that starting five too, who played really good defense all year and averaged around 10 points per game. They might be moving on from Devontae Graham, who they didn't like to play in the latter of the year. Again, so they'll be trading a shot creator away there. I would assume they're keeping Larry Nance and Trey Murphy, all those type of role players, and none of them are shot creators. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense to maybe bring in a dude that has a really nice mid-range, a really good capability of getting to the basket, and yeah, just coming in and doing that. And again, that three-point jumper, it will come. It doesn't necessarily have to be there straight away. Again, around Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, those players that love to drive the ball, I think it'll be a lot easier to get open shots eventually. And again, as that season progresses, I'm sure his shot creation will, I think improve a lot better. And yeah, I just think it would be really nice. Again, although I have Johnny Davis going at this pick, I think someone in the comments might potentially argue with me saying, why didn't I take a dude like Dyson Daniels? The reason I didn't take Dyson Daniels with this pick is because, as I said, I don't think the Pelicans are looking for a point guard now. I think they really want CJ to be their point guard for the foreseeable future. I think they'll also really want to run the ball through Zion as a point forward type of role, similar to what he was doing in the year before he got injured. Again, Zion is an extremely underrated playmaker, and if any of you have watched him play basketball, you will know that. And then I think their idea would be to maybe go after a veteran point guard off the bench to just come in and play those type of minutes. So I think they'll be in more of a market for a shot creating wing, and that's why I have them taking Johnny Davis. So yeah, I think it would make the most amount of sense for them to, of course, do that. Now, with the 9th overall pick, we have personally one of my favorite players in this draft class. I think this would be an absolute steal from this draft, and yes, I said absolute steal for the San Antonio Spurs, and that actually happens to be Jalen Duren. Again, the way I would kind of describe Jalen Duren, I think, for this draft is one of those guys who could potentially jump and you wouldn't expect it. Very similar to Josh Giddey with the Oklahoma City Thunder last year. I remember a lot of people didn't expect Josh Giddey to jump. I thought he was maybe going to go at 10 or 11. I know some people had him going at like pick 15, which was crazy. Oklahoma did their scouting. They saw how good he was in the NBL in Australia, and they were like, this is our guy. Again, he played against a bunch of older men, and again, in the NBL, which is arguably the second best league in the world, and did really, really well. Had a similar path to LaMelo, pretty much averaged very similar stats, and yeah, I guess OKC were like, this guy's really good. and let's bring him in. And Jalen Duren is another guy who I wouldn't be surprised if a team does actually trade up to try and get in that first round pick. Again, I believe he is projected to go about pick 12 or something right now, but I do have the Spurs reaching up a couple positions and taking him at the 9th overall pick. For those of you who don't know what Jalen Duren is like as a player, he is a 6'10" center out of Memphis who is very much being compared to a younger Dwight Howard. Again, he is very, very good in the pick and roll. Also loves to post down his opponents. Again, great rebounder, great athleticism for his size as well. Again, there's not many 6'10" centers out there that I think would be as good of a rebounder as he is. And the best thing is he's a very, very capable defender as well. So yeah, I really, really like, I think that Dwight Howard comparison, I think it makes a lot of sense. He's a great rim protector. He can't really shoot at all, if I'm going to be completely honest. He doesn't have a mid-range on him, doesn't have a three-point shot on him whatsoever. But again, as I just read a quote about him that does say, he is a man among boys. He is very, very strong, great rebounder. And yeah, there's even this website that I'm looking at right now. They're projecting him to go at 9 or 10. But does say he does have potential, some top 6 type potential. And again, I really do believe that. I think if a team was looking to trade out of the top 6, don't be surprised if the Oklahoma City Thunder as well try and trade up to get this guy. And I just think it would make a whole lot of sense. Again, when the draft does happen, whoever gets this guy, and if they get him at 10 or something like that, I think I'll already be making a video on saying that he will be the steal of the draft. I think if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, not only could he be the steal of the draft for you, and again, if let's just say that Chet Holmgren does play power forward on whatever team he does go to, this guy could legitimately be by far the best center in the draft class. Again, I know Chet might play more of a power forward center hybrid similar to Evan Mobley, but as a raw natural center, Jalen Duren is insane, and I think it makes a whole lot of sense, especially if you are the Spurs. They desperately need a center. I think they've still got Jakob Poeltl, who is a pretty decent player, pretty good rim protector, shot blocker as well. They've still got Jock Landale, who is a very solid player as well, was their backup center. Again, I think he can also play power forward minutes as well. Landale's got a good three-point jumper on him. I really do think Jalen Duren's the guy. Not only I think do they need maybe a potential future starting center, this guy would just be so good, so dominant. Realistically, I could see him in his first season. Let's just say they played him around 22 minutes a night. He's the type of dude that could come in his first year and maybe average you around 7 to 8 points per game on about 8 rebounds with elite perimeter defense for a first year player. I think the dude's that good. And yeah, if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, you've got another steal from this draft class. And yeah, I really do hope they do consider him with the 9th overall pick. Again, moving on to pick 10, we have another dude that I think could be another steal from this class. Other than Jalen Duren, I'd say this other guy could be one of those dudes where you hit the nail on the head. I think it is really, really good. I'll hit the nail with the hammer, rather, I should say. I just think it would be a really good move for the Washington Wizards who have that 10th pick, and that would actually be Dyson Daniels. I did mention him earlier when I talked about Pelicans maybe considering him for that 8th pick. Basically, he is a 6'6" point guard out of Australia, and anyone who's watched the NBA draft in the last couple of years knows that there are a lot of good Australian guards coming through the NBA. Again, we look at Josh Giddey in the most recent draft, pick 6 to Oklahoma. Great player, literally the future of Oklahoma right there. Then you look at the year before him, you got Josh Green, who really hasn't played much being in the NBA as a top 20 pick, I think it was. But in the playoffs, played some minutes for Dallas and actually looked like a really solid player. I think if he got the confidence and played for maybe someone else who'd give him minutes, he could explode into being a very good player as well. You had Ben Simmons, I believe, in 2016, and even though he's had a rough couple years, dude was still a all-star. Again, LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton, not really Australian, of course, but did play in the Australian League. And again, did really, really well there too. And Dyson Daniels is pretty much, he's similar. Didn't play in the Australian League, don't actually play in the G League, but he's a 6'6" guard. You notice that a lot of these guards coming through from Australia tend to be pretty tall as well. 6'6" guard who has been known to be a pretty good defender as well. Some even saying he could have actually potentially grown to 6'7.5" with shoes on. So yeah, that is a pretty good height. Again, he seems to be a good ball handler as well. Can guard the 1 through the 3. Being called, you know, a really good point forward that could really explode in the NBA. A really solid two-way player as well. His defense seems to be very, very solid. Perimeter defense is reportedly one of the best in the draft class. Again, he might potentially need to improve on his shooting. That could definitely happen here and there as well. But he's also another dude that just played against real grown men in the G League. He's now got that experience. He did average 11 points per game. Again, his 3-point percentage was only 25.5%. Not great, but he also averaged 4.5 assists and 6 rebounds as well. Again, if he was in the NBL, that would be, I would assume, similar numbers. And to kind of compare what that would look like in the NBL, that would be, I think, a couple of assists lower than Josh Giddey and LaMelo Ball, but pretty on par. So yeah, he would be a really good player for the Washington Wizards. Best part is for the Wizards, they are of course looking to add in, I would assume, some defense and a point guard as well. Going into next season, it's going to be one of the first years in, I think, a long time for Washington where they have somewhat of an established core. Again, Bradley Beal, if he re-signs at that too. Kyle Kuzma at the 4. And again, you've also got Kristaps at the 5. Much more established than they've had in the last couple of years. All of those players are pretty good offensively. Not a whole lot of defense going around anymore. But I think, again, Dyson Daniels would come in and help that. I don't know if he would start straight away. His playmaking, I'm not too sure if it will be as good as a Josh Giddey or LaMelo Ball coming into his first season. But again, his defense has been known to be very good. And I think just to add some of that Aussie toughness that I know he can definitely do, averaging that 2 steals per game and nearly a block per game, I think would really, really help the Washington Wizards and take them a lot further than what they're projected to go. So yeah, I think if they're able to get him at pick 10, it would be an absolutely amazing pick for them. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NBA content and NBA news. Of course, don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys think it makes a whole lot of sense for Dyson Daniels to, you know, of course, maybe go in the top 10? Same with Jalen Duran, all that type of stuff. What do you guys think about my official mock draft? Do you guys agree with some of my picks? Do you guys think I took some players too high, some too low? Definitely let me know your thoughts and opinions on this down below. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel, my IRL/Long channel, and my podcast, which I'll all be linking them down below as well. But again, as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.